Hello and welcome to a new tutorial. This time we're going to make a logo animation in After Effects. Let's see the preview of this tutorial. Now I will start with Animate the stroke layer. So I select the stroke layer, I go to Layer, Pre-compose, and I name it stroke. I select again the second option, I press OK, and I double tap again on the stroke layer to open it. Now I will make a reveal about stroke. So I take the pen tool here on the top bar next to the rectangle tool, and I will set the fill off, and I set the stroke on and I choose a color. The color doesn't matter. Now I go over the whole stroke with the pen tool. So I zoom in, I take again the pen tool and I will create a stroke. You can set the stroke a little bit thicker. The stroke needs to be covered the whole line of the shape. I think I set the edges of the line to a rounded gap. I go to the contents, then I go to stroke and I set it to round gap to make a rounded edge. I go over the whole line. Alright, I set the stroke a little bit thicker, around 12 pixels. Now I go again to the shape layer. I open it and you can close the contents to get a better view, and I press here Add Trim Pads. Now I open the trim pad layer and let's say around 2 seconds, and I set the end to 100%. So I press on the stopwatch to create a keyframe. I go back to the beginning of the timeline and I set it to 0. It's too slow, so I will set it around 1 second, I think. So I will zoom a little bit in and I set it to 1 second. Let's see. Yes, so I select both keyframes, F9 on my keyboard to create a smoother transition. I go to my graph editor to create an even more smoother transition. So I create again a little mountain. Let's see. Yes, now it is too quick, I think. So I go again to my timeline and I will select only the last keyframe and I will drag it again a little bit to the right. Yes, that looks good. So now I will close all these layers to get a nice view. I set the stroke layer here to alpha matte shape layer 1, and if I play it, you see the reveal here of the line. Let's zoom a little bit out to see it. So I play it back and normally you see here the reveal of the stroke. I close the stroke, I close Parasport text, and now I go to Parasport Timmermans logo animation comp, and I will do the same that I did with the Parasport text layer. So I will place it a little bit further on the timeline when Parasport is finished with the logo animation. Around here, I guess. And now I will play it. It can again a little bit sooner. Yes, and now we need to animate only the horse. That's the tricky one, but I will show it to you. Alright, you can guess it already. We're gonna pre-compose also the horse layers. So I select all the horse layers, so the head, the body, the tail and the front leg. So I select all these layers, I go to layer, pre-compose and I name it horse. And again I be sure that the second option is selected. I press again OK. And I will double tap here on the horse layer. Alright, I select the head layer, I press R on my keyboard for rotation and I go around 1 second and I press the stopwatch and I go to the beginning of the timeline and I press here on the second thing here and let's say about -9 to 5 I guess, so I will play it. Okay, I need to change the keyframe here, I guess. Let's play it. And then I set around 2 seconds again here the number to 0. Let's play it to see it. Yes, and I will select the 3 keyframes and I press F9 on my keyboard and now I select again all the keyframes, press Alt on my keyboard to drag it a little bit to each other to create a smoother and quicker transition. Yes, and now I do the front leg. It is a little bit tricky. I will show it again to you. So I select the puppet position pin tool. I zoom in on the horse to see the front leg and I will create here a point, here and also here I guess. And what I do is go a few frames further. So I set here a stopwatch, go a little bit further and I select here this one and I will rotate this a little. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, you need to play with this one. I think it is a little bit too far. I select the front leg, I press U on my keyboard to see all the keyframes here. And now I will drag it a little bit back to the position. And I play it again. And then I select the first keyframes. Ctrl C on my keyboard to copy this one and I will paste it to Ctrl V. And I zoom out to see the animation. I think it is too quick, so I select all the keyframes and I press Alt on my keyboard and I hold it while I drag the keyframes a little bit further. And now it is too slow, so you need to play with it. And I press F9 on my keyboard to ease it, to create smoother transition, like this. But what I want to do is I will do the first animation of the head and then I will start with the animation of the legs. So I go on the timeline between the second and the last keyframe of the horse head, and I drag it between this one. Let's play it. Alright, and now I will animate the tail. So I close all the layers of the front leg and I select the tail layer, and I do the same. I select the puppet position pen tool. I zoom in. I set here one, here one, here one, here one, and here one. I press the stopwatch also. I go a little bit further on the timeline, and then I will change the position of each round thing. So I select the first one and I set it to the beginning. I delete the second one here, and now I will see how it looks. I will drag it to each other. It can much more. I select again all the first one and I press also Ctrl C. I go a little bit further on the timeline and I press Ctrl V to copy this one, and I will play it back. I zoom a little bit out to see the whole animation, and I close all these layers to see a better view of it. Then I select the tail and I press again U. I select all the keyframes of the tail animation, and I will go a little bit further on the timeline and I will drag all the keyframes here, and I open again all the keyframes of the tail layer. I select all keyframes. I press F9 to create smoother transition. Yes, that looks very good. And you can play with all these things to create an even better animation of the horse, but I leave it for now how it is now. Otherwise the video is too long. Then I close all the layers and I play it again to see it. And I go again to the Parasport Timmermans logo animation, and if you can guess, I set this horse layer further to the timeline. Let's see. I will create a smoother transition of the horse, because now it is popped into the canvas and it looks a little bit weird to me. So I press T on my keyboard to open the opacity of this one. I go to around 4 seconds. I press the stopwatch on. I go to the beginning of the timeline of the horse and I set it to 0. Let's play it. I select both keyframes, I press F9 on my keyboard, and now I go to the horse comp again and I will select all the layers. I press U on my keyboard and I select all the keyframes and I will set it a little bit further on the timeline. I go back to the Parasport Timmermans logo animation comp to see it. Alright, I will go back a little bit to the beginning of a timeline with all the keyframes, and I keep adjust this. So what I want is I will set the opacity here to 100% and then I will start animation of the horse. It can a little bit quicker. Alright. That looks really good for me. Let me know in the comments which logo I need to animate, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I hope you liked this video and I hope I see you by the next tutorial. Thanks for watching.